1792 Ful Proof on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. And yes, 2025 needs something so far that's about 125 proof. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. This is Implicit Bias from the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair. That is the TSPL for the uninitiated. Let me introduce you to the crew that we've got here this week. Sitting in the chair, much like mine, he is partaking of his weekly whiskey already. He is the rustic renegade, Caleb Morse. Caleb, great to have you in.
Great to be here. Great to be 6 foot up, and happy to be having a whiskey tonight.
I was about to say, you're just happy that you've got a whiskey, as every week, correct?
Most definitely.
Yeah. At the bar, we have Brian Hold Harmless Harmon, who is sitting in front of Deep Blue. Yeah, that is Brian on your left. And to the right, for his first appearance in the bar that it now is the TSPL, he is Burley Short Pour Pellerant. Great to have you back, Burley.
I'm
and
knocking stuff over even as we go. You didn't tell me that wasn't connected.
If you just broke that one, because Caleb broke one before the show.
It literally just slid off the
No,
end
like
of it.
if it split because it fell, you're killing me.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm grateful and glad to be here. It's been a long time. Been way too long.
It has been way
Happy
too
to be
long.
back.
It has been. Brian, how are you while Burley attempts to go down there and fix that?
I'm doing fine. Thank y'all for having me again. I'm looking forward to
Watch his hands,
a new
watch his
year.
hands.
Yeah, see, this almost worked. I wanted to see Burley try and go get that on camera while y'all were both sitting there. I tried.
Good job.
I tried. We'll fix that before the next segment. Let's dive in.
Need some Velcro or something.
Let's dive in to our weekly whiskey, which is not unobtainium anymore. These are easier to find now. Ful Proof 1792, which always comes in at 125 proof. Let's start at the bar. Who wants to go first? Burley, you're going to chime in first. What do you think of this particular Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey?
I think of this exactly what I remember of it. This is a sleeper.
Okay.
This is a sleeper whiskey.
Sleeper might not be the right term that you want to use right now. I'm just saying.
Oh.
It doesn't get the credit that it deserves.
That works. There we go. We can go with that one.
And the reason why is, first of all, it's a high rye whiskey, high rye bourbon, and so that's right in my space where I like high proof, and it's oily. It's got a great feel on the palate. This is I forgot about this one, but I remember why I like this one.
I am with you on the fact that this one is oily. It is viscous, but it does have that just oily feel on the palate that really gives it a long finish. And I've always loved what they've done with the Ful Proof 1792. This bottle certainly does not disappoint. It's been a few years since we've done one here on the show, and I always like to check in and see kind of what the new releases look like, if they still live up to the old. I think this one does.
It really does. It's when you do the push your tongue to the roof of your mouth thing, you get that good burn. That's where you pick up that rye. And it's a great whiskey. I think it's a great whiskey.
Outstanding. Mr. Harmon, what do you think of this particular offering?
I agree. I think it's an easy drink for the high proof. Y'all won me over when I started interacting with you guys. I was always...
I love the way he puts that. Interacting.
I chose
Go ahead and
my
call
words.
it what it is. Call it what it is. Goofing off, drinking, sitting around sipping, slumming. Yeah, there's a bunch of words you can use.
Good, easy to drink for the high proof. I can't say anything more than what he just said. You mentioned the long finish too. I agree. It's got a good aftertaste, and I'm curious to see what this one costs.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. All right, Mr. Morse.
I'm surprised that Brian wasn't more loquacious with that. You normally speak a little bit more. Like, you really just want a second Burley?
Well, I'm watching the show more and more with my old lady, and I'm just tired of being ridiculed for the things I say.
So,
I'm just
whoa.
Well, that's what happens every
hold
day
on.
in a marriage.
Hold on.
That's the story of
That's
my
me
appearance.
checking the box.
Hold on.
I said I would mention her.
Hold on. As the guy in the video would say, hold up, wait a minute. You got make fun of because of what you say, but you just called your wife your old lady on the show, and you watch it with her? You're a brave man.
It was old lady. He didn't pronounce the D.
Oh, okay.
That's right.
So that makes
Yeah.
a difference.
Yeah.
It does.
That makes a difference. Do you sleep, Brian? Because I'm
No.
suggesting you don't for a couple of weeks. That's all I'm going to say.
With one eye open.
Yeah.
I like the game you married guys are playing like y'all don't know what I'm talking about.
I call my wife a ton of things.
No,
I was about to say, I've never called my wife my old lady.
I don't
and
think I've
she's in
called
the
her
other
that.
room, and she knows that.
That's a term of endearment.
And
That's not.
It is.
Oh,
it is.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've called
And
my
I'm
wife
looking
that,
through
though.
the door, and I see she has her shoe in hand just in case, because she's got a direct line of sight to where Kavan
Yeah.
is.
All right, so Caleb, what do you think of this 1792?
So I got notes, not copious, but I got notes. On the nose, I get Banana Foster. I get that banana, that caramel. It's robust. It's there. And then I had to Google baking spices to figure out which spice I smelled, and I narrowed it down to cardamom. I'm sorry, no, not cardamom. Coriander.
Coriander. Okay.
Coriander. Narrowed it down to coriander. I was like, oh, that's it. Nutty, a little bit of sweet. Yep, that's there on the nose. And then on the flavor, it's nutty, earthy, smoked, but not overly smoked. And then, Walker, you good? You all right?
Well, we're going to go to Walker in a
Yeah.
minute, even though we can't see him.
It's because I said nutty twice.
Yeah.
And then smoked candied plantains.
Smoked
Yep.
candied
You ever had
plantains.
candied plantains? Normally they'll
I have.
take them, they'll roast them, bring them out, a little cinnamon, like a miniature Banana Foster. But if they were smoked over like pecan wood or something first, because they've got a little bit of acidic flavor to it, but it hits right. It's a great little dessert, and this at 125 proof, buy it.
So not just any wood, only pecan wood.
Yeah, because mesquite would be too acidic,
Okay.
right? Apple would be too sweet. Pecan gives it just that hint of acidic flavor you're looking for, but it still doesn't override the sweetness of the cinnamon, the caramel, and the plantain.
Couldn't have been maple.
No.
Okay. So smoked over pecan wood. And
Yep.
I do get that little bit of smoke on this. I love the sweet. To me, this is bourbony McBourbon.
Oh, yeah.
I get heavy creme brulee off of this. Almost that burnt sugar, custardy, smooth on the palate, just
I can see that.
substantial
Mhm.
on the palate as well, which gives it that little bit of oil that you expect. What do you want to chime in,
But
Burley?
not overly sweet,
No.
because I'm not a sweets, but I do get what you're
Burley,
saying.
we know you're sweet. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, we're not doing a
Ring the bell.
diabetes commercial after this. one,
Ring the
It's-
bell.
it's-
That was funny.
It's sweet enough. It's good. It's hint there, but it's not
Less-
fleeting either.
Less is more. So
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
It's the hint of sweet
Yes.
with this. It's not over sweet. And I do agree with you there. I absolutely love this one as well. And at 125 proof, this is one of those that hits what we like to do, just kind of right in the feels. It has everything we like. It's got a little bit of aggression to it. It's got a right proof on it. It's got that caramel flavor. It's bourbony McBourbon. So I'm in love with this. I'm curious to hear what the implicit bias intern, who no longer wears his pledge pin, has to say.
A pledge pin.
Yeah, a pledge pin.
I enjoy this one. I do get like the spice on it or like little after. But Caleb mentioned he liked the nutty wood flavor of it. So that
Is
kind
that what
of
got you?
yeah, it kind of threw me
Yeah.
off guard a little bit. But
So apparently you like nutty wood too, right?
well, I
You
guess
just
so.
I went one way and you went another way. That's what it was. I said one thing and something else went in your mind. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can't say this on terrestrial
He's in the
radio.
gutter.
I
He's
want
in
to
the
say this
gutter.
on terrestrial radio and I just can't. Anyway,
You can beep it out.
so Walker, what do you think of this? Where would you rate this on the Morse Whiskey rating code? Would this be a red? Wouldn't drink it even if it was free. A yellow? Only if it was free. A green, you would seek it out, or a blue? A green, you would buy it, or a blue, you would seek this out.
I'm gonna say definite blue.
Okay, this is a blue for you. Interesting. And let's go ahead and get your offering on what would you pay for this. So what would you pay for this bottle of Ful Proof 1792?
85.
85 and a blue. All right, let's go to the bar. Brian, we'll start with you. Where do you rate this and what would you pay?
I'm going to give it a green. I'm going to hold off on the blue designation, but I would say it's a $65 bottle.
Okay, so green and $65. Burley?
I'll go with a blue just because this is just a great sipper. This is not, by the way, this is not something you want to mix with anything. There's too many flavors, I think. So if you're gonna have a mixed drink, I don't think you wanna mess
good
with
You
call.
this
sure?
one.
That-
You
no,
sure?
I mean,
you
that's a
sure
pretty-
about that?
I don't think
That's
so.
a pretty good call. 'cause,
I don't think this would make even a good old fashioned.
No, it
Oh,
makes
I
a
don't
great
know.
old fashioned. But
I don't
I
know.
think for the typical mixer, when they're looking like they'll mix it with Coke or Dr. Pepper or
Well,
something
maybe
else,
so.
you couldn't do that
Again,
with
I'm not
this.
even an old fashioned guy.
Yeah,
but
I agree with you.
there's-
Can't mix it. You
I
can't.
think there's too many good flavors for this not to be enjoyed by itself. Maybe on an ice sphere, but that's it. I wouldn't mix it.
We're gonna disagree on this because an old fashioned out of this to me would be off the charts. It's got enough
It is.
proof.
It is.
It's gonna stand up on its own. The flavors in the old fashioned are gonna add to a lot of it because you're gonna get a little of that brown
putting
sugar, a
all
little bit of that
stuff in
vanilla.
there. I don't know.
It's gonna make a killer old fashioned.
Maybe
You're-
so.
You're not.
If you're an old fashioned guy, I'm not.
I'm gonna give you one that you probably wouldn't think of when making this because traditionally it's not made with a bourbon. You make a Sazerac out of this, off the charts.
Really.
Well, think about it. It's 2.5 to 3 ounces of whiskey, bitters, some herb saint in the glass, finish with a lemon peel. That's what it would make. And you've got to have some simple syrup in there. It sweetens it a little bit, but you don't need a ton of the simple syrup because you got a little sweet in the whiskey.
Right.
This to me in an old fashioned would be great. In a Sazerac would be off the charts. And it's enough sweet here that you can pull back,
Pull back on the sugar.
on the simple syrup.
Yeah. Okay.
And you still have enough spice to make a Sazerac out of it. That's what I'm thinking here. And I'm not traditionally one, to say let's put really good stuff
Right.
into a cocktail. This might work. All right,
All right.
Caleb.
Well,
Wait,
I didn't
finish.
Oh, okay. I'm
I
sorry.
will give it a blue.
Okay.
I'll give it a blue. I'll go $60.
$60. All right.
I want to give it a blue. And the only reason I'm not going to is because I forget about it. This is one of those bottles that when I go down to New News and look at everything else, I'm like, ooh, I always love that. Oh, piece of candy. It's like something else catches my attention because I forget about it, right? So it's phenomenal. This stuff drinks really well. I know about where it costs. It's a bargain, a phenomenal bargain. And I'm only not going to give it a blue because I've overlooked it on accident. So, a blue is one of those where I'm like, you know what? I have to have that.
But did you overlook it on accident or did you overlook it because it's not unobtainium? Did you
That might be
overlook it
it.
because it's on the shelf pretty consistently now?
And
It used to not
yeah.
be, but now it is.
It needs to be on the bar. It
Yeah.
deserves a place on your bar. I think. And for that reason, I would give it a blue.
give it a blue.
I think it needs to
And
be on
maybe
the
that's my problem is I look at it, I'm like, ooh, I had that. I like that. Let me try something different. Where this should be, I have that, or I had that, I ran out of that. Let me buy another bottle. That's what this should be. Y'all are trying to change my mind. I'm gonna stick with it green.
Okay, so deciding vote because we have two blues,
I didn't give
two
you a
greens.
price.
I don't care. No, what's your price?
Yeah, this is gonna sound really bad, but I'm gonna go $56.99.
$56.99. All right. This is a blue. This is a blue. I've always got to have one on my bar at 125 proof. Man, it's just so good. It is such the example of bourbon, and bourbon at a high proof that is easily drinkable,
That's-
easily enjoyable.
That's the thing. 125 proof. Everybody can't drink. But at this,
You can
have it on your
anyone
bar.
drink
You
this.
can
Oh,
you
yeah.
can introduce somebody to this whiskey.
And pretty much this 125, anybody can drink. It's not that bad when you think about
Well, you can
proof and how it
always-
expresses on the palate.
You can always say it's something different. Put it in your decanter. Put an empty bottle of something that you bought 6 years ago that you can't find again next to it, and be like, oh, we're drinking this, because it masks it really well.
No one would know.
No,
It is that good.
They're never gonna know.
So so it's a blue. So that's a 3-2 split decision blue. That means that some of that has to find its way into deep blue on the bar, the Implicit Bias Infinity bottle, which, by the way, William S. Nacall Jewelers, you can get them there. That's where they have the Waterford lead-free crystal that we use for our Infinity bottle. Now, as far as the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette,
That's the
Caleb
sound it makes when
Morse.
you hold it.
Caleb Morse is the winner because this is about a $54 to $55 bottle of whiskey, which is another reason why this is an absolute blue. Just the affordability of it at this price point,
Oh, yeah.
at this proof, it can't be matched, in my opinion. It's one of those that I don't want to say should be unobtainium, but isn't. Because I don't want to create a market where there isn't one, a secondary market where there isn't one. But this is one that I am shocked people aren't still fighting over.
Well,
Because at one time they were.
I think a lot of it's just because it gets forgotten. It gets overlooked. I mean, it's a nice presentation, but it doesn't stand out. You know, it kind of gets lost on the shelf. So when you go there, you're like, well, let me look for a bottle. Ooh, look how tall that bottle is. You're not looking for this little short bottle with hips.
Did it go through a period where there was some inconsistency?
Not that I recall.
Not that I've tasted.
It did go.
um,
It did go through a period. So you're thinking Willet.
Willet, Pot
Yep.
Still.
Pot still
Yeah.
had some inconsistency. This, as far as I know, did not have any inconsistency with the liquid in the bottle. Availability was an issue for a while. And then once the availability started to catch up, once the supply started to catch up,
The interest waned.
kind of.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, and I hate to say this about bourbon drinkers because I think we're this way.
Trendy.
Not only are we trendy, if we can't find it, we're like, oh, it must be special.
Hmm.
No. Sometimes if you can't find it, it's because it's either going to other states, it's being distributed differently, or there's just a hiccup. It could even be like we know with some
Yeah,
of our,
maybe
it could
a
be a bottle.
fire.
It could be a fire. It could be a bottle issue. There's all
Oh, I
kinds of
forgot about
reasons
that, yeah.
why we might have some inconsistency in supply. And once it starts being seen on shelves all the time, now people are like, well, it must not be that special anymore. Therein lies part of the problem. But this one is absolutely special. Full Proof, 1792. I love it almost as much as I love telling the guy in the corner who I don't even remember his name because I don't care. When he gives me the 1 minute finger, Walker, when he gives me the 1 minute finger to hold off because we're going to go a bit long. We're not going that long, Walker. This to me, an absolute blue, an absolute everyday drinker that you have to have on the bar. And this is what will continue on with our implicit bias as we get into the stories of this week when we come back.